You're listening to a recording of a show broadcast on radiopod.co.uk. All facts and figures and reference to topical content were correct at the time of broadcast. All competition entries for this broadcast have now been closed. To find out about future live shows or listen back to other recordings of shows, log on to radiopod.co.uk.
This show was first broadcast on Sunday the 16th of March 2014.
You're listening to Radiopod, free pop-up radio shows about you and your life. One more minute to our next live show. Downloading show information.
Hi, I'm Jen Nicholson. On Radiopod this evening, if you're unsure where to start with online dating, you are in the right place. Coming up, we're going to speak to dating coach Gary Gunn from socialattraction.co.uk and professional profile photographer Saskia Nelson from Saturday Nights All Right. You can also join in with our online poll, are you put off if someone's profile mentions children?
Without your contribution, the show can't happen. So to take part, email studio@radiopod.co.uk. Leave your phone number or Skype address and we'll call you back. That address again, studio@radiopod.co.uk. Although we've made every effort to broadcast a show to a professional standard, we accept no responsibility for the language or opinions of our live callers. This show has no age rating. Sponsored by equaldating.co.uk. Radiopod. Get into it.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's edition of Radiopod. We are talking all about online dating and how to get started in it. Now, 25 years ago, the World Wide Web was created, and who would have predicted that in 2014, 1 in 5 relationships would start online, and that 17% of couples that had recently married had also met online. When I started researching this programme, I thought a lot about my friends that are in relationships, and I was surprised at how many I could think of that had met online or that have tried online dating. And I can include myself in that. I dated online for 6 months. I went on 20 first dates, a few seconds, a couple of thirds, and it was at just the point I was losing faith in the male race that I gave it one last chance, and I ended up meeting my current boyfriend and now fiancé. So I am proof that online dating can work, and hopefully by listening to Radiopod today, we can perhaps help you take those first steps in online dating. However, it is not as simple as sign up, get a date and get a relationship. Putting pen to paper or technically finger to keyboard can be one of the most terrifying things to do, and people often get it wrong. But there is hope in the form of dating experts, and these extremely useful people can help you gain confidence, rewrite your profile, choose your pictures. And my first guest, Gary Gunn, is one of those dating angels. He's a dating coach and runs socialattraction.co.uk. I spoke to Gary and I started by asking him how he ended up where he is.
I was on the verge of going pro at rugby when I was 18 years old, and I had a car accident which basically gave me nerve damage down my neck and back, and I had to retire basically at 18. And up till that point, I was like a really confident guy. And the car accident and actually having to stop, which kind of gave me my confidence, is what led me to lose kind of self-esteem, put on weight. From that point on, I kind of, my success with the opposite sex diminished very quickly. So it was kind of how I then made the decision to kind of sort that area out.
So when you actually started to do online dating yourself, how did you go about it?
I started online dating when I was having terrible troubles with women when I was quite young and got absolutely no results. So my experience with online dating was appalling, really. And then when I kind of got into more of the coaching side of things and got more experience, I then went back onto the online dating side of things, knowing what I know. And again, it took probably 2 or 3 years of refining that further to actually understand what works online, what doesn't work, why it works, what you need to do to get a date. Also, as well, a lot of people spend so much time online, they just waste their lives talking to people that they're never actually going to meet. So a lot of what I advise people to do and what I help people with is organising dates fairly quickly so that you're not living your life online.
So if you are that person who is really struggling of where to start, I mean, I've been there. I didn't have a clue where to start. I didn't know what pictures to put up or what to write, because you don't want to sound cliche, but you don't want to sound like an idiot, but you want to sound like you've got something to you, but don't want to sound like you're showing off. So what's your advice to people when they're sort of starting out on the first steps?
The first step, really, when you're online dating, I mean, your main photo, your username and your logline are the main 3 things. And a lot of people, when they register for online dating sites, they just try and, like, they go for a really generic, like they put their name with like an underscore 376. And what you've got to realise is that that's the first thing someone notices about you. So your username, which is how you register on the site, is actually vitally important. Your initial photo and your tagline. So a lot of the time, we may suggest going for a black and white photo. So when people are searching through the search engines, they'll see a black and white photo, you stand out. If you then have a good username and logline, adventure usernames and titles normally do quite well, then you've got more chance of getting clicked and someone looking at your profile. So they're the first three things you need to look at: your main photo, your username, and your logline.
And black and white photos, they're often quite flattering as well, I find.
Yeah, I mean, we've done other things as well. I mean, we've done stuff like we've had caricatures of people drawn as well, which then generate interest for people to click and look at your profile.
Okay, so it's about making yourself stand out and be different from somebody else.
It's about making yourself mysterious online. We find that mystery is the biggest way of attracting attention online. So if someone reads your profile and looks at your photos and wants to know more, then they're going to initiate contact with you. And that really is the be-all and end-all of your profile. Your online profile isn't to convince everyone what a lovely person you are. Your online profile is there as a way of meeting someone. So your profile needs to be written in a way that's going to get someone to email you. And we found that being mysterious is extremely powerful.
So what's a good line to start off a profile?
That's a very good question. I'm not one for giving lines, but for example, where a lot of people go wrong is they write, I'm adventurous, I'm fun, I'm this and I'm that. And unfortunately, writing lists about yourself is really generic and really boring. So opening up with something that you're passionate about or how you live your life is a much better way. If you're into culture, then something about, I find that travelling around Europe to major cities is what ignites passion in myself. Now, I wouldn't suggest writing that line, but something like that where you open up with a thought process about your life. So you're not listing what you do, you're more conveying who you are. It's a lot more powerful.
So definitely things to avoid are listing things about yourself?
Definitely, don't list anything. The major mistakes are listing things about yourself. I'm funny, I'm adventurous, I'm this and I'm that. It's so generically poor. The other thing as well is spelling mistakes. Get 5 people to read your profile to make sure that there's no spelling mistakes in there. And like using text speak in your profile, that's a big no-no as well.
I know when I was first started out and I was going through it all, and I just thought as soon as somebody had put the wrong kind of there, that was it. They were out.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I hosted an event in October, and I actually mentioned that there's 3 different types of there that people spell wrong all the time. Yeah, there really is no excuse. I mean, to be honest with you, guys don't really get turned off by stuff like that, but women especially do. If you're writing a male profile and there's spelling mistakes, it's not actually just about spelling mistakes. I think that when women generally read a man's profile, it's not so much what he writes, it's what he conveys about himself. And if you've got spelling mistakes in your profile, what's that kind of conveying about yourself?
You've come on to quite a good point there about the difference between men and women. And I know there's a friend of mine who I sort of started online dating the same time as I did. And we were kind of comparing, because I had a lot of messages and a lot of sort of interest, and he didn't. And I kept saying to him, it's not personal. It is more of a case of you're a man and I'm a woman. And it's very different for different...
Well, actually, something that online dating companies don't publicise, I write for a couple of online dating companies, is that 75% of the users are male.
Oh, right.
Which is something they don't publicise. So if you think about it, then obviously, if you're only in the minority, you're going to get more attention.
So actually, if you are a male out there and you are thinking, nobody's messaging me, what sort of advice do you have for them to get on with that?
Well, there's a few things that you can do. So, what we've spoken about already with your username and making your photos more enticing and having your profile better. But with regards to sending emails, I'd probably send 4 or 5 a day for a month. And when you send an email, again, it's really easy to fall into being generic. I like this about you, I like that. So we teach something called a 3-step email process. It's one example of something that we do, and it's really easy. Okay, it's called flirt-like question.
Find out more about flirt-like question from Gary a little bit later on. So Gary mentioned about how to get noticed, but what about those of you who've been there and had the online dating experience? Here at Radio Pod, we've been inundated with stories of people's real life experiences with online dating, and I caught up with those who've been there and tried it.
I'm Becky and I'm 41. I started not long after I separated from my husband. Felt that I needed to get out there and meet some people. Didn't have anyone in my circle of friends that was single that I liked the look of, and decided that I was going to actually be proactive in going out and meeting somebody new. So went on a few dating sites and had a good look around.
So were these all at the same time?
I did have a couple at the same time, but I would tend to just focus on one because I'd get a bit bored with them sometimes. And you'll often find that you have the same faces that keep coming up. So if you're on there for a little while, you still have the same faces that keep appearing. And if you don't like the look of those faces in the first place, you're not going to like them in the second place.
So you're one of our success stories. How long did it take you before you found the person you're dating now?
It took quite a long time. It took about 2 years, and that was a lot of dates. I probably had in that time, it was probably over 40 dates, which was quite a few, and a lot of interesting dates. Met some really interesting people and had to be quite tough in not letting things affect you. So if people decided that they didn't want to meet me, I would have to be quite strong and think they don't actually know me, and it's not about me, it's about what I'm presenting online, so they don't know me, so not to take it personally.
And did you find you learnt anything about yourself through online dating?
Yes, it definitely helped me to narrow down who I was looking for, or the type of person that I was looking for. It did help increase my confidence at the time, because when you end a relationship, that does have an impact on you, even if you don't think it does. And it does knock your confidence with the opposite sex. So it did, increase my confidence, because I thought I can go out there, I can meet people. I met some really interesting, really lovely people when I was doing the online dating, and had a good time doing it as well. Went out for the evening, had a good chat for the evening. Even if it was somebody that I didn't particularly like, you can just say, oh, I'm sorry, not really my cup of tea, and let's leave it there then, which is fine.
And can you still remember when you actually started out and sort of started writing your profile? How did that feel?
That was really uncomfortable, because you have to look at yourself as you believe that other people would see you. So, and at the same time, you have to try and sell yourself in a positive light, because you don't want to give them all your negatives and then get no dates out of it, because that's not good. But I was really honest in setting up my profile, and I have been on some dates where people aren't particularly honest in their age or with their photos, and you turn up and you think, what was the point? Why on earth did you lie in the first place? Because if you meet up, you're going to find out anyway. Silly. So yeah, the actual writing was quite difficult, and I did ask some friends for input on what they would expect to see in my profile, and I learnt quite a lot from that, because you don't very often ask your friends or family what they see in you. So yeah, that was quite informative as well.
If someone had said to you 25 years ago that online dating would be the thing that people were doing to find partners, what would you have thought?
I'd have thought they were crazy. But then I guess 25 years ago, that was a time when I was going down the pub, I was going out, I was having fun. I still have fun now. But you would never have believed that it would have been so successful. And I've got so many friends that are doing online dating, and I have a number of friends that have had real success stories. I've got a friend who's going to be married in December. I've got another friend who's very recently become engaged. And so there are lots of success stories out there, which is really good, and really it's really inspiring when you're going through the process, when you're doing the online dating, and you have those low moments, because you do, when you think, oh, I'm never going to meet anybody and this isn't going to happen. And then you kind of look around and you think, actually, it has happened for a lot of people that I know. So stick with it. And that's what I kept thinking. Okay, we'll stick with it. We'll keep trying. And eventually you will meet somebody that you want to spend the rest of your days with.
So to that person who is sitting in front of the computer and they just don't know what to write, what would your advice be?
Be honest. Definitely be honest. Sell yourself. So think about all your good points. Think about how people perceive you. Think about if people would say that you're a friendly person. Think about what your friends and people close to you would say. Would they say that you're nurturing? Would they say that you're outgoing and confident? So why are they your friends? What can they see in you that attracts them to you? So think about it from that perspective and take it from them and ask people. Ask around and ask people what they think of you as well, because you do learn something.
So if it wasn't for online dating, do you think you'd have ever met your current partner anywhere else?
No, I wouldn't. We work in very different circles. We have very different circles of friends. He lived in a different area. Completely different people we would never have met. And also my friends are all paired up, so we would never have met through friends. We would never have met through family. So, it's really difficult to meet people these days. As a single parent, I don't go out to the pub like I may have done when I was younger. So I'm not meeting people that way. So for me, it's definitely the best way to meet people. And I would definitely advocate, if you're thinking of doing it, just go for it. Give it a go. Got nothing to lose.
What got you started on online dating?
Basically, I was not wanting to go out and make that first contact with someone. And over the computer and things, you can kind of hide behind your screen and sort out a meeting and do it that way. And it felt a little bit nicer than going up to a random person, being like, hey, fancy a date? So that kind of would have felt awkward.
So for you, it was more of a comfort thing?
Yeah, it felt a little bit more safe, even though it might not be safe, but I think it feels a little bit less challenging and more free world. You can do what you want with it.
And can you remember how it felt the first time you actually signed up and sent a message?
I giggled. I remember giggling a lot, and it felt really good when you start making that contact, or if you get in a message, and it's quite exciting when your phone buzzes, because I had the app, and it was quite exciting. Yeah, I did like it.
What advice would you give to anyone starting out?
Don't be so stressed about it. It's supposed to be fun. And you can only make it as safe as you make it. If you don't feel safe, don't do it, and just enjoy it, because you're meeting new people, and it's supposed to be good fun.
So those are the people who've been there and tried it. So joining me in the studio now is Rob, who's been producing the programme. You've been monitoring the texts and emails. What's been happening?
Well, there's been quite a few funny stories that have been coming in, and some good experiences and some bad experiences about going on dates, meeting people online. There's a text here from Suze. It says, my funniest date was with a guy who seemed nice and normal online, but when I met him, all I could focus on were his incredibly small, and I mean freakishly tiny, hands. Bless him, he told me he had been so nervous before the date he had consulted his colleagues on what to talk about and what not to talk about. Suze continues, she says, i.e. they told him not to talk about British military fitness. Foolishly, I asked what it was, and he proceeded to talk about it all night. There have been some good and some not so good, but I am yet to have the lovely success stories you hear about all the time. The search continues, smiley face.
Oh, and how about you? Have you had any sort of online dating or just dating experiences?
I did actually try it online. I'm happily married now, so thankfully I don't have to use online dating, but I have done in the past. And I had really bad experiences as far as the fact that I didn't get any dates at all. And
well, that's quite common though with men. Men often find it quite difficult.
And I think I put it down to the fact that I didn't know what to, write in the profile, which we've been discussing this evening. And also the photograph, I just chose a random one, which I probably took of from my phone at the time, which wasn't a great phone.
Do they have
back in
camera
the day.
phones then?
They'd just been introduced, so that's why the quality was so poor. But yeah, I think I got one email from a woman who was 53 years old, and
how old are you?
I would have been about 28,
Okay.
27,
Maybe
something
not
like that.
quite in your age
so
range.
yeah, the match wasn't quite there. So as you can imagine, I didn't, because I'm not into the older, well, not that much older. Anyway, moving on. So I didn't actually, kind of go ahead and send her an email back, which, from one aspect, it could sound rude, but on the other hand, I wasn't interested. So why bother starting this email conversation when it's not going to go anywhere anyway?
See, I had a friend who once said to me about that. I wasn't replying initially to people who I wasn't that interested in, but she said, just out of politeness, just send them a message and say, hi, thanks for your message, I really appreciate it, but actually you don't really sound like my cup of tea. And then maybe if they put something in their profile like they're a runner and you really hate running, pop that on.
Well, that's a good point, yeah.
I tried it, and I had some really nice messages back, and I just thought it felt a little bit more like I was making dating a bit nicer. So it was kind of less about the rude side of things.
I suppose in a way that is a relationship in itself. Obviously not a love relationship, but it's a relationship between two people in a business sense.
Yeah.
The fact that you're both on a website because it is really a business, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're trying to join two businesses together to make a better business, aren't you? That's the best analogy that I can come up with.
Well, that's such a man analogy.
I am a man and I talk about man's things. But yeah, I mean, that is a fair point actually about responding back to people, even if you have no intention of actually going on a date with them, because they might be sat at home all by themselves, not having any emails themselves. So the fact that they didn't get an email back from me might have been quite, I wouldn't have said traumatizing, because it's just me. It's not as if it's like Prince Harry or somebody like that. But do you know what I mean? It from a self-esteem point of view, it might have been nice that she would have got an email back from me. So in hindsight, slap on the wrist.
Oh, you're a bad person,
I should
Rob.
have done. Yeah, I am a bad person.
Well, what else have we got?
We've got an email here. By the way, if you do want to send us an email, the address is studio@radiopod.co.uk, and we had that text from Susan a minute ago. If you want to send us a text, text the letters LJNEH and send it through to 60777.
And we're really enjoying all the stories, so please keep sending them in.
Absolutely. This email is from somebody who wants to remain anonymous. They haven't put down their name or where they're from.
Which is fine.
It's fine. So I'm just going to call him Andy from Cheltenham.
Okay.
So here we go. It says, before I started to look on dating websites somewhere in May 2013, I never thought about using one of these websites. I also never thought about what it would be like. I signed up with a dating website because I think at that point I couldn't be bothered to go out and meet people. Is that just laziness? I think it is. Anyway, Andy from Cheltenham, pseudonym, continues. I signed up with a few free ones, but didn't really expect anything from it. After a few messages and some conversations with a few women, some of the websites told me, if you want to continue chatting and communicating with this person, you have to pay. So, Andy says, I thought to myself, I'm going to pay for 3 months. If I'm not successful, I will try the normal dating again. After a few conversations, I went on a first date with someone who I thought looked nice, and although that might sound shallow, that was the first thing I was looking at. I was extremely nervous before I went, which was unusual for me, as with dating when I had already met the person in a bar or at work, I was not nervous. I arrived half an hour early and felt increasingly anxious as time passed. The date lived quite far away from me, and I didn't own a car, so this could be a challenge. So after 2 dates, we both decided that the distance was too big. Now, he continues, Andy from Cheltenham says, my second date was one that I would like to forget. Oh dear,
Ooh.
What happened? He says, well, she looked nice, but turned out to drink a lot of wine.
Oh, no. Never good on a date.
I don't mind drinking a few glasses, but she didn't mind drinking a few bottles.
Oh, what are we talking? A few bottles?
Well, he says, I didn't count them, but it could well be 4 or 5 bottles.
Surely you'd be in hospital.
That's not healthy.
Oh, no.
I mean, he says that she didn't even pass out, so I think that she was quite used to it. But yeah, I mean, we don't advise drinking that much wine in one evening. That's seriously dangerous. So you can understand why that date didn't go too well. He continues. He says, "I can't really remember my third date, and that's not because I drank that much, but it was just very boring. I guess that was both our fault. We just didn't click at all. That's the risk, I guess." The fourth date was cancelled because she couldn't get a babysitter. Later, I found out that it was that she was actually double booked. She went on a date with someone else that day. And then he continues. Andy from Cheltenham says, "A few days later, on a Sunday evening, we were going to meet at a restaurant. We were going to meet at 8. I was there by 7:30. Don't like to be late. She texted me that she was going to be a bit late, 8:30. It was quite cold and I kept myself busy with my phone, expecting another text that she was going to be even later or maybe cancel. When she arrived, we sat down and had a coffee. I immediately thought that she's got a beautiful smile and was very attracted to her."
No.
That's nice. After we had our coffees and both agreed we should see each other again, we went to her car because I don't drive, as he's pointed out. Andy from Cheltenham continues. He says, "She offered me a lift and took me home. Just before I got out of the car, I asked her if it would be weird if I kissed her." He says in brackets, was thinking about that from the moment we met. Okay. So obviously, from his point of view, love at first sight. Yeah. So his question was, would it be weird if we kiss? She said, no, not at all. And before she could finish her sentence, I kissed her on the mouth.
Aww.
Isn't that nice? He then says, got out of the car and waved at her when she drove off. When I walked to my door, I had the biggest, wait for it, smile on my face. What? Smile on my face, and was thinking that it went well. Laying in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about when I was going to see her again. At that point, I was convinced that online dating definitely works.
Yes!
That's from Andy in Cheltenham. Thank you very much for your email, Andy.
That's great. Thank you so much, Andy. So if you have a story just like that, please let us know, because that is a really lovely, lovely story.
Get social with us and follow our feeds by connecting on Facebook and Twitter. Our username is RadioPodUK. For everything else, log on to radiopod.co.uk.
You're listening to Radio Pod and how to get started in online dating. Let's go back to Gary Gunn to find out just what flirt-like question is.
So you have basically, in essence, 3 sentences. The first question, you flirt with the person you're sending a message to. So an example would be if they've loaded up loads of photos, like 10 photos, you could say, "Thanks for loading up 10 photos. It meant I only had space for 1 or 2. So that's like the flirty part of it. Or you read something in their profile. If they've got a spelling mistake, you can, make fun of it. The next bit is to like something about them. So then you say, "Oh, I saw this in your profile and, I really like that. That's actually really interesting." And then you ask them a question, which is, so tell me more about this. What do you think about that? And that's a structure for sending emails that's extremely effective.
Okay. Because I know when I sort of had a look at the people who'd send me a message saying, "Hi, you look nice," that kind of thing, you think, oh, please, come on. And then you just wouldn't even go there.
Yeah, there's something else you can do as well. On certain websites, they have an email subject title, and this is where most people go wrong. So if you're a girl, generally speaking, you get roughly 15 emails a day if you've got a good profile. When you go into your inbox, you scroll through and you look at all the subject titles. Most people put, hi there, how are you? And it's really generic. A really effective way, if you read someone's profile, they have words in there called trance words. So my trance words are like absolutely fantastic and quality. They're the 3 words that I use all the time.
Right.
But if you take the time to read someone's profile, you pick out their main 3 words and you put them in the subject title. That way, when they look through their inbox, they see their 3 favourite words, they're going to click your email message first.
So when it comes to, you were sort of talking about when you started out, you had quite low self-esteem. And that seems to be quite a common theme. People don't necessarily want to start out because they just think they're afraid of rejection. And online dating is a lot of rejection. How do you work with people who have low self-esteem?
There's a multitude of different ways that you can work with people who do have a low self-esteem. Obviously, getting them success in an area is massively important, because then that obviously helps their self-belief. So if you come to, for example, someone like myself who's a dating coach, I'm going to look to raise their self-esteem through dating. Whereas if you go to a personal trainer, they'll help their self-esteem through personal training. I don't necessarily think it matters too much which specialist you go to help with that. I think it's more deciding that you need help and then taking the steps to actually raise your self-esteem is the key.
I mean, one of the things that I kind of found helped me the most was trying to not take it personally. If someone doesn't want to see you again, it's not because you're a horrible person, it's because you're just not right together. And actually, it took a long time for me to sort of work on that. Is there a kind of quick way to get to that?
Yeah, definitely. I think if you just look up any statistics about online dating, you'll see that I think it's like 75% of men never receive a single email when they online date.
Oh, wow.
So if you get one email back, you're in the top 25%. I think generally speaking, the more active you are, the more chance you have of going on more dates. So it's okay sitting at home feeling sorry for yourself and sending one email a day. What I would do personally, I'd go on 3 online dating sites with 3 different profiles, 3 different lots of photos, and I'd send messages on each site every day. I'd only give an hour a day in total, so I'd log on at maybe 6 p.m. for an hour, and I would start collating data on what's working for me, what types of messages are working, even when you're going on dates, what kind of things are working when you go on dates. There's a lot more you can be proactive with rather than worrying about what's going wrong.
Actually, when you get to the dating stage, how many dates should you give somebody? If you meet them the first time, you think, I'm not too sure, should you go on another date?
The actual key to dating's changed so much over the last few years, I mean, especially in the last 5 years. I'd say that the key to dating is actually to do something interactive with someone. So if you're meeting someone online, I wouldn't suggest going for a coffee. I definitely wouldn't suggest going out for dinner. That's a terrible idea. Mm-hmm. What you need to do is to make it something interactive, which takes the pressure off the date. So if you go for a coffee, you're going to end up sat opposite each other. Chances are you're going to end up in interview mode, what do you do for a living, all the background kind of questions, which is really boring and generic. Well, you're better off doing something much more fun. So it can be anything from I need to buy a new pair of shoes, come and give me a hand. There's this fair on Saturday, come along with me, meet me there. But the key is to do something which takes the attention off of each other and onto something separate. And what that does, it frees you up to get to know each other without the pressure constraints of actually kind of being in an interview mode.
And I imagine that probably works better for people with low self-esteem. They don't get so stressed. They can just enjoy what they're doing as opposed to feeling on the spot. It's
completely true. I mean, I take men into real-life situations and I teach them how to approach women and communicate with them as well. And one of the main things that I teach people to do is rather than facing someone straight on, if you turn your body language away slightly, it takes the strain off the conversation. Because if the conversation's like struggling, you can then look outwardly and point something else about the situation that you're in, which again takes the pressure off the interaction. So the whole process of dating is about not putting pressure on yourself or the other person. If you can do certain acts in specific ways that takes the pressure off, then you can actually get to know each other a lot quicker.
And that's Gary Gunn from socialattraction.co.uk. We'll hear the last of my interview with Gary a little bit later.
Remember, you can listen to Radio Pod on your PC and Mac using broadband, on your tablet using Wi-Fi, and even your smartphone using 3G and 4G wherever you are. Log on to radiopod.co.uk.
So on the Radio Pod website at the moment, we've got a poll. Rob, tell me, you're in control of the poll. What's going on?
Yeah, I'm in control of everything interactive on today's show. So your texts, your emails, and the poll as well. Basically, I've put it on the website. The question is, are you put off if someone's profile mentions they have children? Which is quite interesting because 10 years ago, I would have said, oh, yes, if they mention they have children, I'm not interested. And that's because I think at that time of my life, I was wanting my own children, so it kind of put me off. Now I've got children. If I then ended up being single and was on the dating market again, it wouldn't put me off, I don't think.
No?
No, not at all.
And you think that's because you've got the children, so actually it's not something necessarily you'd think about again?
Yeah, and also for the fact that, all right, just to share something personal with you, I've had the op, I've had the old scissors, the old snip, you can, whatever you want to call it, oof, all the men listening, and that was the decision that we made because we don't want any more children, we've got 2. So, if something did happen and then I did end up being on the market again, obviously that would have to be, explained to any potential candidates. Is that the right word?
It's not an interview.
Just auditioning. So, because obviously I've got my children, I don't want any more. So that doesn't bother me, the fact that somebody else would have children, because I've got mine. And I suppose in a way, I would be probably attracting more people who already have children.
What about, though, the possibility that your children don't get on.
I guess so, yeah. You mean with each other or,
Yeah.
or with your potential partners?
Yeah, so,
children?
you know, because quite often if you bring two families together, that can be something that is a bit of a difficulty.
Well, yeah, and, you know, there could be a massive age gap between them as well. So, you know, mine are 5.5 and 2.5, I had to think then. You know, and I might end up with somebody whose kids are in their teens. So instantly you're dealing with different issues from, you know, terrible twos tantrums to teenage tantrums.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, there's all these different things. And I suppose it's at that point you have to gauge whether the relationship is actually worth it or not. You know, whether the children are the ones that are actually taking over the decision, or, you know, whether it's you know, you rise above it and say, look, kids, this is my life as well. I want to enjoy myself and find some love, you know.
And actually, now that you've got children, would you be more likely to date someone with children because they understand what it's like to have them in their lives?
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't bother me either way. I think what it boils down to the fact is that now I've had the operation and I can't have any more children. It's down to the person that I would be meeting, whether that would bother them and affect them. So if they didn't have children but never wanted children,
right,
then that's absolutely fine, because, you know, they have my children. It again, it depends on the situation.
Yeah.
If, you know, I don't touching wood and not jinxing anything, but if I'd split up with my wife, then obviously my wife, or she would be my ex-wife if we'd split up, obviously, she would still be in my life. If something more sinister happened, then she wouldn't be in the life anymore, and it would be me solely raising the children. So again, that has a different bearing on the relationship status, I think.
So just, you know, all in all, it kind of makes things a little bit more complicated, but...
Children are always complicated. But yeah, in the situation, obviously, it does make it, a lot more complicated.
I don't think it would put me off entirely, because I think, you know, you're getting into the relationship with that person as opposed, and you're taking on the whole package. You know, everybody's got things that make them a little bit more complicated than someone else. But I think the only thing that would bother me at the moment is the fact that I don't have children and I want children, and I would want to be they're having the moment together where it's your first child. I think that's the only area where I'd sort of feel a little bit, maybe I would be a tiny bit put off, but I wouldn't rule anybody out. No,
I mean, you know, and I was in your situation when I was single, you know, 10 years ago, pre-marriage and pre-children. So totally get where you're coming from. And, you know, it's like, I want to meet someone and have my children with that person and blah, 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 which is, you know, an absolutely normal attitude to take, and that's the one that I had. Obviously, now I've got children, it's a different story. And this is what it boils down to. It depends on what stage you're at in your life. You know, you're I suppose your answer on the poll on the website will change depending on what your situation is at the time now. You know, and in 5 years' time, we ask the question again, are you put off if someone's profile mentions they have children? And you might give a completely different answer.
Yeah. The other thing, I suppose, is some people actually feel put off from mentioning their own children on their profile, just in case it would put off a potential partner.
Absolutely. And, you know, there's the danger that you don't mention it on your profile, and then you go on the first date, and because it's the first date, you don't want to mention you've got children on that date because you don't want to put them off. And then you get yourself into a situation where I really need to tell them I've got children, but it's not still quite the right time. And so how long do you leave it before you should actually tell them?
Yeah, I think it's nice to just put a little mention in the profile, because at the end of the day, you don't want to end up dating someone who doesn't want to date someone with children, because they wouldn't be the right person for you. Yeah,
exactly. If you want to, by the way, take part in this poll, it's on our website, on the RadioPod website. Just go to radiopod.co.uk/live, and you'll see this evening's show information. Obviously, if you listen to the downloadable podcast afterwards, that won't be there anymore. But if you listen to the show live, then you can actually see the poll there. And again, the question is, are you put off if someone's profile mentions they have children?
And equally, if you wanted to share your opinions about it with us, that would be just as good as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Just send us an email, studio@radiopod.co.uk. You can also use the online form on the website at radiopod.co.uk, or you can send us a text message as well, which comes straight through to the studio. You need to start your message with the letters LJNEH and then send it through to 60777.
Yeah, and don't forget that texts are charged at the standard rate.
Actually, before we go any further, Jenny, I want to ask you about any of your dating experiences.
Eek! Oh.
Come on, we've heard from other people.
Oh, I'm not sure I want to share. Really? Do I have to?
Yes, you do.
Oh, okay.
Come on.
All right then. Well, I dated for about 6 months online, and I didn't like it at first at all.
Why not?
Oh, I hated the fakeness of it. I hated the fact that you were meeting this random person and you were then forced into conversations and things, and I actually got a little bit cross about it. I know it
Not with the person you were seeing, but just the situation.
Yeah, the situation. I just felt like it was a really fake set up situation, and actually I'm a quite relaxed person, and I found myself getting so stressed about it because it was a fake situation, and I actually nearly passed out on my first date.
What,
so,
literally passed out?
Yeah,
seriously.
Well, I got dropped off, and I was in the car on the way there, and I just remember thinking, I'm really lightheaded. I think I'm going to pass out, and it was that point, and I just thought, why am I doing this? Why am I even bothering? But it got easier. It got so much easier after, I think, about the 8th first date.
Wow. Okay.
I think it got a lot easier. I relaxed into it. I enjoyed the actual experience then. And I think the only thing that really bothered me was the rudeness, actually, about what happens after a date.
I was going to say, the fact that you felt lightheaded...
Nothing to do with the wine I had before.
No, I don't think it wasn't a confidence thing, surely, because I know you, and I know you're quite a confident person.
On the outside.
Oh, I see, okay.
But not on the inside, because we all worry about the idea that we're going to be judged. And I have a circle of friends. I have a lot of friends. I don't really meet that many new people anymore, unless it's in a professional capacity. And you can put on quite a good brave face in that situation. And I think it just felt a little bit like... for the first time in a long time, I was being judged on my social skills and what I was like as a person, as opposed to what I was like as a job. So
I suppose, in a way, like doing an exam, because you're under the pressure that you've got to get things right first time, and you are. Yeah, you're having, like you said, your social skills are being put to the test, aren't they? And
I have found it actually changed me, because I went from being someone who was always late to somebody who was ridiculously early, because I couldn't bear the idea that I would walk in and they would see me first. I preferred to be early, sat down with a drink, sort of calm and prepared for the person to come in and me to spot them, because then it kind of made me feel a little bit more in control of the situation.
Well, there you go. There's another idea for an online poll. Early, on time, or late.
Yeah.
Because they've all got their advantages and disadvantages, I think.
Yeah. And I think with the anxiety and stress levels of the date anyway, I found that being a bit early just made me less flustered.
Yeah, and chance to, like you said, just grab a glass of wine and just calm your nerves a little bit, I suppose.
I'm so glad I've managed to avoid the question of my dating stories.
So anyway, your dating stories. So it took you 8 times, and so...
Oh, no, I went on 20.
Oh, 20?
Yeah.
Wow,
20.
okay. So if you could cherry pick, I don't know, your top 2 for either good reasons or bad reasons, what would you say they were?
Well, there was one date where I was actually so bored that I went and hid in the toilets for a little while.
No.
And I just sat there. And I was really annoyed because my phone didn't have signal, so I couldn't even text people. And I was just sat there for ages, and I just thought, I'd better go because he's going to think there's something wrong. But I was so bored. To stop myself from falling asleep, really, I had to just get out of there.
So it wasn't a situation where it was that bad that you were considering even climbing out of the window. It was just a bit boring, and you thought, well, I just need a 5-minute break from him, and then I'll go back.
Yeah, and because I couldn't bear to just leave the guy on his own. I felt that would be cruel, but I did just have to sort of get a way out of it somehow, and I just thought, well, at least if I have a little break in the toilet, then I can come back, and at least that's a little bit of time gone.
And in what way was he boring?
Just I was doing all the conversation.
So you just didn't click?
Yeah, I was pushing I was driving all the conversations.
Because he might have thought you were too pushy. So you thought he was boring. He might have thought you were too pushy, and that might be the real. Basically, like I said,
well, we'd have been sat in silence
you
otherwise.
didn't click. So that was the situation. I don't know.
It was
just a thought. I wasn't there. I was just throwing that into the mix, or was I there?
Are you saying I'm pushy?
No. So tell us about your other experience dating then.
Well, obviously, my favourite date has obviously got to be my partner now. because that would be
You
really
have to
wrong.
say that,
if
don't
I
you?
didn't say that. No, we went for coffee, and he had cake. I didn't, because I didn't feel very ladylike having cake on a first date. But he actually tried to walk out without paying.
Really?
It was a very awkward situation. He didn't mean to.
Ah.
He was just so nervous about the date that, and I sort of thought, is this the point where I'm supposed to pay? And then I was thinking, oh no, this is really awkward because I don't know, and it was just a horrible situation because I sort of went, oh, shall I pay? And he went, oh, I've forgotten to pay. And it was very awkward.
Radio Pod. Get into it.
As well as online dating, there's plenty of other ways that you can go out and get dates. And my next guest is Nikki Smith, and she's been in the dating industry since 2007. Hi, Nikki.
Hi, how you doing?
Yeah, good. Tell me a little bit about yourself and how you ended up in the industry.
I set up my business in 2007. I was relatively new to the area, and I wanted to just go out and meet people with the possibility of maybe meeting someone special. But my main emphasis really was about going out there, doing fun things, and there was nobody else that was organising sort of singles events out there. So I set up the business and sold it a couple of years ago.
Okay, so you focus quite a lot more on the social aspect of dating.
Yeah, definitely. I think the key thing to think about is when you're looking to meet someone special is kind of take your focus off, meeting the extra special person, because you just want to go out and have a good time. And if you meet someone, great. If you don't, then don't worry, you've had a really nice evening anyway. And I think if you take that pressure off yourself, then there's a good chance you're going to meet someone, or a friend of a friend, or a friend of a friend, rather than thinking, I've got to meet someone, I'm so desperate, which obviously can give off sort of the wrong vibes anyway. It's just about going out there and just giving it a go, really, and not worrying too much about it.
And what was your experience with that? Did you find a lot of the people that came along to the event were a bit more desperate than they should be?
Well, I think a big mixture, really. I mean, some people might have been married for sort of 10, 15 years, and it could have been their first event, or perhaps they've been recently widowed. So it's a really massive thing to be sort of going into a pub, walking by yourself. And even like in internet dating, you arrange to meet someone in a bar. It's totally out of your comfort zone, and it can feel really, really scary when you have your first date. But I think the thing is to try and think about it as though you're meeting a new friend, and what's the worst that can happen? Just don't worry about it. Just do it, and if it doesn't work, you have some funny stories afterwards, and you'll find all your married friends will suddenly be inviting you around every week to hear your latest story, because they will find it very, very highly amusing. And sometimes you can brush it off, and sometimes you can get a bit fed up about it all, and but you just got to give it a go, really.
So the actual getting started in dating is what this sort of show's about today. And I know for my first date, I actually nearly passed out on the way there because I was so nervous about it. And I wish someone had just grabbed me and said, calm down. What's your experience been of people's sort of first dates and things?
Yeah, I remember when I was setting the business up, I looked at all different avenues. I went on various, internet dates. And I remember thinking, I'm 35 years old. If at the age of 18 someone would have said to me, at the age of 35 you'll be meeting a random stranger in a bar to be your potential life partner, I would have completely laughed about it. But that was quite a few years ago, unfortunately many years ago, and that just wasn't a done thing. It was a weird thing to do. You just didn't do dating agencies, or obviously the internet wasn't even around, whereas now it's absolutely the norm, and I think people are so much more open to it now, which is fantastic. And there's so many people that do meet people through internet dating sites or singles events clubs. The days of meeting people at work, it's still obviously a great way to meet someone, but if you're working at home, you're running your own business, you're not going to meet colleagues because you have no colleagues. So a lot of people work from home now. They don't live where they grew up, so they haven't got their school friends. You just don't have that community anymore. So people are internet dating a lot more, and the success rates are fantastic.
Your main experience has been a lot about the social side of things, as we said. So what do you think people should think about when they're going out dating? What should they wear, and what should they try and make it?
I think they should just feel comfortable. Yes, they need to make a good effort, a bit like if you're going out to you're going out with your friends in the evening, put on that bit of extra aftershave, not too much because obviously you don't want to scare them away, put a bit of extra lippy on, but don't change who you are. You've got to stay as you are, because at some point you are going to be who you are, and you've just got to imagine you're going out to meet a group of friends, or to see a friend, and just do it.
And what about social events then? What are the best events for people to go to actually meet and get talking?
The best events are those that you have a natural interest to. So, for example, if you like country walks and pub lunches, then that's going to be the best event for you to go to. If you like comedy nights, they're great because you only have the opportunity to have a little bit of a chat in between. So there's, but then again, that can be a disadvantage if you meet someone, because you might want to have a good old chat with them and you can't because you've only got a few minutes either side. So I think it's a mixture of things, really. I think you have to be honest with yourself and think, what is it that I like to do, and continue doing those things, and then you will meet people that like to do the same things you like to do, both men and women. So if you're a female, you might meet other women that like to do the same thing, and you get to meet more females. Okay, you might have joined a dating site. Why have I met more females? But then the females also have male friends that are also single, and it's just about expanding your network. And I think the key thing is just to give it a go. Just try it. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't matter, does it? Just try it. Just give it a go.
How does it work then with this sort of single events? Do people turn up? Do they go with friends? Do they go on their own? How does it work?
Generally, the females will go with another female, and if it's a good events company, then the host in the evening will split up the friendships, because otherwise they're not going to mingle. The opportunity is there's too much opportunity for them to want to stay in their little groups, which makes it very cliquey for other people. And the whole idea is they want to meet other people. So, fair enough, bring someone with you, but expect to be split up at that event so you can meet other people. Generally, the men will come by themselves.
And then what happens when one of them likes one of the others? Do they sort of have to get the confidence up, or does that something that the company does?
Well, the process used to be that a feedback email would be sent the following day to find out if they enjoyed the event, if the food was up to a good standard, if they liked the venue, and if there's anybody they liked, would they like us to pass their details on to that particular person. Obviously, you have to be clear of data protection, so you wouldn't pass telephone numbers on unless people actually knew about it. So we gave the opportunity for people then to contact the person who said they'd like to meet them, and left it with them. But as I was the owner of the business, I often used to not find out what had happened. It's a bit like the teacher never knows what's going on, and then suddenly, a year down the line, you get a wedding invite or someone's had a baby, and it's like, oh my goodness, I never even knew that was going on. So there's loads of success stories out that the people that run the businesses have got no idea what's going on. So some of the larger dating companies might say they've got X amount of marriages, and there could be double that amount, because not everybody will tell them all the time. But it's fantastic news when they meet people. But I was just as happy when groups of girls were getting together and groups of guys were getting together as relationships, because it was all about single people going out and doing fun stuff together. But if you want to meet your life partner, they're out there, but you have to be honest with yourself. You have to think about what you enjoy doing. Don't change who you are, and just give it a try. What
about for you then, as the business owner? What was that like when you find that people have got together and things, and you're the one who's made that happen?
It was lovely. It was a real added bonus, actually. It was kind of, when I first started up the business, it was about doing fun things together and sharing the experience. It wasn't about thinking, oh, here I am, I'm going to be a matchmaker, I'm going to make people fall in love. It was never about me, believe it or not. It was about opportunity for me to do stuff with people and have a better social life, really. So when the first marriage invitation came through, it was like, wow, I hadn't even sort of considered that, really. And now I look back now, and if I sort of think about life-changing events, you sort of look at some of the jobs you've done and you sort of think, oh, don't know if I really added anything to anyone's life, and then suddenly think, oh, actually, I've got people that I've put together that would not have been together had I not set the business up. And that's quite a nice thing to leave, really.
Whatever you're into, whatever you'd like to hear, we're always looking for new show ideas. If you have an idea that others would like to hear too, please get in touch and share it. Log on to radiopod.co.uk.
So hopefully what Gary Gunn from socialattraction.co.uk has been saying has helped you. Well, here's the last of the interviews that I had with him. And taking us back to the picture side of things, I mean, I had quite a big thing about this. I wouldn't speak to people who had headphones on. I wouldn't speak to people who had sunglasses on. And I wouldn't speak to people who didn't have a front-on picture. I wanted to see their eyes and things. Is that something that people should think about, or is that just something unique to me?
Well, I think the general rule that we like to tell people with their photos is to have a nice headshot looking in the camera, smiling for the main profile picture. And then you want photos that are congruent with what you've written about yourself. So if you're an adventurous person that likes travelling, make sure you've got a photo of yourself doing that. Don't make a profile about what a cultured person you are and then have a photo of you drunk at 3 o'clock in the morning with a kebab in your hand. Like, it's all about congruency. Your photos, your tagline, your username, your profile and your pictures all need to send the same message. And that message needs to be that you're having a great life anyway and you would like someone else to share it with, because that's attractive. Whereas if you've got slight incongruencies with what you're saying, people turn off. And unfortunately, with online dating, there's always someone else they can go on a date with.
And what about with the different dating sites and things? There's some that you can just sort of peruse and look at people and just kind of take it from quite a shallow aspect. But then there's the other sort of sites where you can't see any pictures until you sign up, and you actually have to put quite a lot of work into it before you can actually find out about that person. What sort of websites do you think suit different people?
It depends what you want. I mean, I advise all of my clients to go on 3 different dating sites, go on a free one, go on a paid one, and then either another paid one or another free one. You always go on 3 sites, because you can write different profiles about yourself and you can test different things. But I think the general rule is the harder it is to online date, the more serious people are on that site to find a partner.
Mm.
So if you're paying £30 a month, you're more serious than if you're going on a free site.
Can we talk a little bit about free sites and what is the general rule with free sites? What do you think people are actually on there for? Are they sort of going for the serious thing or?
Yeah, I think if you made me categorise it, I would say that the people on the free sites generally are people that are looking for a quick form of self-esteem and validation. So either to get some emails to make themselves feel better, their phone pops up during the day, oh, someone likes me, or they're on there for sex. A lot of guys are on the free sites basically looking for sex. Whereas if you're going on a paid site, there is that more air of seriousness about the site, and you will get less people wasting your time. It really depends what you want. I mean, if you are going to go on a free site, there's something I'd suggest that you do, which prevents, if you're a girl as well, which prevents the hordes of guys contacting you for sex. If you, at the end of your profile, we call it a call to action, which is, telling people to contact you, you actually put on there and state what you don't want, or what you do want. So something you can put at the end of your profile if you're a girl is, as you can tell, I'm quite into travelling, so tell me, if you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you go? Okay. And what that does, it makes you think about it before you reply, so you actually stop 90% of the time wasters emailing you.
Oh, right.
We normally had a call to action for men and women, and it's because a lot of like female clients that we've had always go, but I get contacted by like 40 guys a day after sex, and we literally just add one line in to the end of their profile, and they don't get contacted by them guys anymore.
That's really interesting. So that's quite strong psychologically, then.
Yeah, basically, you're making the people work for your attention. And what's interesting is if I was online dating now and I saw a girl write that at the bottom of her profile, I would deliberately not answer that question when I contacted her, and I'd maybe even mock her for asking that question. But again, what you're doing is you're preventing most guys from contacting you that aren't interested.
I found on the free sort of sites that there's quite a lot of people who are sort of serial daters. They're not necessarily looking for sex, but they're not necessarily looking for a long-term partner. They actually just seem to really enjoy going on a lot of dates. And I sort of came upon that a few times and just thought that was quite strange almost. Is that sort of your experience?
I think, what you're kind of getting at there is that these kind of people need constant validation from the opposite sex. So, they like to constantly be going on dates to know that someone else likes them. And yet, unfortunately, you're always going to get a certain amount of that on any online dating site and in real life as well. It's one of the dichotomies of dating, isn't it, really? Mm. It's always hard when you meet anyone new. The best way of meeting someone, obviously, is through your friendship group anyway, because that way there's a certain amount of respect there anyway, or you can kind of, it's a referral really, isn't it? Whereas when you're online dating, you don't really know anything about anyone.
I don't know if that still happens. Does that still happen now?
Yeah, with clients that I work on, one of the main areas that I work with them is their social life, because it's such a massively important part of meeting people. So even if you're going to the gym and you're not talking to anyone when you're at the gym, you're missing a massive opportunity of meeting people, because it may not be the person you meet at the gym. They might invite you to a party where there's a partner. If you're single, I always think about dating like marketing yourself. You know, if you were marketing your business, you would be online, of course you would. You'd be networking in real life. There's no difference. You know, today it is all on about, if you're single, it's about marketing yourself, especially if you're serious about meeting someone. And you want to make sure you're not missing any opportunities.
Yeah.
But I think as well, I'd just like to say that dating isn't just about finding the one. I think there's a certain amount of actually enjoying the process, because there's a lot of people that I've coached in the past that have met people on the date from online, and they haven't ended up dating, but they've ended up becoming friends with them. And I think that whilst, yes, you're looking for a partner, I also think it's really important to enjoy the fact that you're meeting other people, you know, to have a bit of fun with them. It's not a case of meeting them and 30 seconds later, right, they're not the one, on to the next one, because we're all human beings.
I did find that I ended up just collecting them, and I ended up with loads of new friends, which was lovely, but that's slightly frustrating.
Yeah, it's true. I just think that if you know, it's okay to set yourself a goal of meeting a partner, but as soon as you start, and right, he's not the one, moving on to the next one, it's almost like it's going to become a repeating pattern anyway. And also, it's just not healthy.
So actually, online dating doesn't necessarily just have to be about finding a partner. It can be about finding friends.
No, I completely agree with you. You know, a lot of again, going back to my clients, we have a Facebook group for everyone that I've coached. It's a secret Facebook group, and a lot of people post what happens to them on their dating life on there, and a lot of the time, you know, men that I coach get in contact with other men and make friends, and then they go out to social environments together, and it's more about, you know, having well, for me, having a community of people that are kind of working together on the same thing, but also having a lot of fun along the way.
And actually, lots of relationships do come from friendships. So that person you went on a date with 2 years ago that you thought, no, wasn't really the one for me, 2 years later you might develop it, and it's suddenly, yeah, actually, they are right.
I had a client of mine a while ago that said, you know, I don't have any problems, you know, meeting girls as friends, you know, and often we end up having a relationship. But when I go out and I'm looking for a girlfriend, I can't find anyone. And I said, well, that's really easy then. I said, go out on the weekend and just make 5 new girlfriends. He was like, actually, that's a really good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Because that way, again, it takes the pressure off them. And if you only want to be their friend, again, that kind of lets you get to know each other without kind of dismissing each other.
And those friends have friends, which is always
exactly.
a bonus.
You know, it's completely true.
If you had to have one sort of sentence that you had to say to someone who went, I need to start online dating, I don't know where to start, what would you say to them?
I'd say visit socialattraction.co.uk. If people are actually interested in online dating and learning more, I write a lot on my website about online dating. What we've talked about the types of emails to send, how to write your profile, all of that information is free on my website.
Brilliant.
If you go to the blog section, there's literally, I don't know how many articles on there that basically outline how to do all of this.
Thanks, Gary. Now, one of the most important areas, as Gary pointed out, when starting online dating is what photo to use. Saskia Nelson is from Saturday Night's All Right, and she's a photographer and takes official photos for people's online dating profiles. I spoke to her and started by asking what got her started.
Well, I run the UK's only online dating photography organisation at the moment. It's kind of growing very rapidly. I started it in May last year and spent a couple of months coming up with the idea and getting everything in place, and then launched kind of in May. And it started off pretty slowly, and then it's just kind of really taken off. There's such a gap in the market, which I kind of realised because I did online dating myself for quite a long time, on and off, for years, and that's why I wanted to do it. I think as a photographer, I was kind of, you know, if I want to branch out, what will make me stand out from the crowd? What is it about me that I can bring to my photography? And it was kind of my experience online dating and my empathy for people who are online dating. I totally get where they're coming from. I know what they've been through. I know the journey they're on. I've kind of been there. I've had great experiences. I've had awful experiences. But I'm in a great relationship. I've got stepkids, and we're about to celebrate 5 years together. So, you know, so I know that you can be a success at it, it can be successful. I used to entertain my friends for years with my crazy dating stories, and suddenly I thought, do you know what, I could actually put this to good use. And my clients really like the fact that I'm not just a photographer, but I can relate to what they're going through, and I can give them advice and support and tips, and I know quite a bit about it. And also I've kind of looked at many photos during that time that I was online dating, so I know what works. And I realised once the idea kind of came to me, I was like, oh my God, there's such a market for it, because the minute you see a good photo when you're kind of scrolling through hundreds of pictures, you just hone in on it straight away. It doesn't matter what's going on with the person or anything, and the photo immediately will draw your eye to it. And sometimes that's, the first thing you need is to get people looking at your profile. And there's some ridiculous stat somewhere that says guys, like something like 96% of guys will make a decision about whether to date a woman based on her photo. And for women, it's something like 68 or something. So, it's all, and it can be based on photo alone. So having a good photo is crucial, and no one does. It's all like iPhone pics taken on nights out and this kind of business. I'm not really interested in kind of people who are hooking up and things like that. I'm more about, my clients tend to be at the stage in life where they're like, you know what, I'm really serious about finding love now. I want to do it properly. And doing it properly means spending time on my profile, writing it properly, and getting a decent set of photos that I can use to go with it. So those tend to be the people that I'm working with.
Okay, so when it comes to the photo, what should people actually be thinking about doing?
For the lead photo, you need kind of a head and shoulders, smiling, engaging shot, and it needs to be in focus, it needs to be bright, it needs to be a strong image. And I say that because a lot of photos, there'll be lots of stuff going on in the background. It might be a bit dark. They might not be in focus properly. So it's just tightening up all that. It sounds quite straightforward, having a smiling headshot of yourself. But, if you've got some crazy stuff going on in the background and maybe someone's arms around you and it's been cut off and, all this stuff, then it's kind of doing you a disservice, really. So a nice, strong head and shoulders shot, you're looking at the camera, you're smiling, you look happy. That's a great lead photo. And then it's quite useful. It's quite useful then to have supporting photos and a pool of supporting photos that show you kind of a bit more relaxed, maybe from the waist upwards. And usually it's quite good to have a full-length one as well, just because people like to see what they're getting, like to see the full package, as it were. I do all my stuff outside because I think I'm a professional photographer, but I'm trying to get a look and feel as though people have been caught out having fun with their friends.
Right.
They're not out with a professional photographer, but it just so happens like one of their friends has a great camera and is quite good at photography. That's kind of the vibe that I go for, and I think if you look at my website, it kind of has that feel that they're not necessarily gone to the studio shot photography thing, but they just happen to have great friends who've got cameras who can give them great photos. So I try to specialise in creating a set of photos for each client that's got different vibes going on within it. So there might be one sunny, bright one, or there might be one where it looks like a completely different day. They're in the country or something, or they're down by the river, all kinds of things like that. But all of my photos have in common that there's just one person in the photo, and they're very much in focus with the focus of the image. The background behind may be something a little bit interesting, but it's not going to be taking over the shot. The main focus is the person in the shot.
So what are absolute no-nos then?
I think having more than one person in the shot, there is some people do say it's a good thing if you read research on it, and then others will say absolutely not a good thing. And I tend to agree with the not having it, because people can find it intimidating, or they might be distracted. They're looking, well, that's the person, but actually that one looks nicer. Or, there's all sorts of, when you add too many people in the mix, it just confuses the mind. People just want something easy. They want to see who they're looking at, and that should be the focus. So I always say, don't include photos with other people, and definitely not you with your ex-boyfriend's arm around you, your ex-girlfriend's arm around you, because that happens a lot.
It's surprising how many of those there are out there.
Yeah, there's even you even see ones where they're in their wedding outfit practically.
Oh.
It's like, oh my god. So yeah, that's a definite no-no. And children in the shot as well, I think is a no-no. Really, I think guys might use it if it's not their child, but it makes them look more appealing. But still, I wouldn't. I don't think that's a great thing to do. And anyway, some people wouldn't want their children being used to attract people online. So children are a no-no. Kind of guys with their cars, that sort of thing. If it's because of a nice sports car, that's really not good. Unless you're trying to attract a certain type of woman, which there might be. But generally, I would say that's a big no-no. And anything kind of blurred, dark, where they're looking a little bit intimidating or, that kind of thing, not good. And maybe if they're drunk as well, that's not good either. So that's the kind of shots you get quite a lot. And it's kind of, for me, are big no-nos. And obviously when they get shots done by me, there's none of that going on.
No. So what's it like for you when you actually do hear that a client's done well and your photos have been the ones that have helped them get on?
Oh, God, I love it. I heard back from a client a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, he loves his photos so much. All of his friends and all his dates have said he looks like something out of GQ magazine. And so he's absolutely loving it. He's been on lots of dates and he's enjoying the attention and he's feeling really good about himself. So he hasn't found love yet, but he said he's met some interesting women, and he's, without a doubt, my photos have helped him to do that. I had one client who's on OkCupid, and she's on there for quite a long time, and then she got her shots done with me, and she kind of went straight into their top 10 most popular or something, so she got an email going, what's happened? You've suddenly shot into our top 10 most popular people. We're going to start sending you better-looking people, which has actually really annoyed her. But they obviously screen people based on their, how attractive they are. But anyway, the point was her photos suddenly kind of made her, even to the point where the dating company noticed something was different. And she's now in love and heading towards, they've talked about marriage.
Oh.
So, so it feels really, really good. It feels really good. That's the best bit of my job, is when I get great feedback from clients. They don't always remember to do that, though, so sometimes I have to drop them a line and go, how's it going?
They're so busy falling in love.
They're too busy dating and emailing people.
You mentioned that one of your clients said he felt more confident after he'd had the photos done. Do you find that's kind of a common theme, that confidence does grow when they start seeing this portfolio of photos of themselves looking great?
I'd like to think so. I think, I send out a guide to everyone about what they should and shouldn't wear, and makeup and spots and all this. But the one thing I say at the start of it is, I will do everything I can to make sure you have a great shoot and that I get the best photos. But the one thing I can't do is help you with your confidence, and that's the one thing that can make the difference between a kind of okay photo and an amazing photo. If they come to my shoot feeling really, really good about themselves, I will get amazing photos. So I try to do so. I start to plant the seed at that point, and I might suggest to women getting a makeover done, because you can get free ones at Benefit or Bobbi Brown or whatever. Maybe getting a haircut, and it's more about just getting your makeup done. It's because I know that once when you go and get your makeup done, you walk out feeling like you're fire, like you're hot stuff, and that's what I want to capture. Ideally, in my photos, is when they get that feeling of, God, I'm feeling really good, I'm looking good. And if you can capture that, then, they will carry on being kind of really confident in their photos. But yeah, I think my photos do build up their confidence, because it is me showing them at their best, but without kind of digitally enhancing the photos in that kind of, other than in the normal way with light and stuff like that. I don't kind of change their facial features and anything like that. If you are serious about finding love online, getting your photos done is really important. And, I work with dating sites and I work with matchmakers. They are working with really high-end people, but who come to them and pay loads of money, but they have really rubbish photos. So it's like, how committed are you to finding love? So if you are committed, it's worth investing in, especially if you think that this is now it's the thing for 2014. I've kind of been building up awareness now and blogging quite widely, and it is becoming I'm not going to tell you how many people are on my waiting list, because there are so many, but I don't want people to come and get freaked out and not come to me anymore because I think there's too many. But I'm very, very busy, and if people who are dating think, oh my God, I'm going up against people who've got really nice photos to bring the best out of them, then they're already going to be, they're going to get pushed down the pile. They're going to be less noticed. So it's actually worth thinking about. If they haven't thought about it before, it's definitely worth thinking about it if they're serious about that. If they're just like having a laugh and going out with lots of different people and it's just fun, then that's fine. But if you really want to find someone, then it's worth investing in, I think.
Online dating is a very expensive process. What sort of price is it to have your photos done?
At the moment, it's 110 for 6 fully edited images, and then I've thrown in some black and white ones as well. And then it's going to go up to about 160 probably, but that'll be from April onwards. I mean, if you're serious about love, then if you're serious about anything, then you invest in it.
That's Saskia Nelson, profile picture photographer from Saturday Night's All Right. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been fab to hear your stories. But before we go, Rob, you've got some more that have come in the past few minutes. What have you got?
I've got an email here from Ross in Cornwall. After trying online dating for a year, I'd not had any success. However, I have met some really nice and interesting people. I find that profiles and photos can be very misleading. This is an unfortunate part of online dating. Someone can look attractive to you and seem interesting, so you arrange to go on a date, but then within 10 minutes of meeting them, you realise that they're nothing like that their profile made them out to be. I know. This makes the rest of the date feel very awkward and leaves you wondering whether to stay till the end or make up an excuse to leave. Online dating can be very tiring at times.
It can be.
Bad experiences from Ross.
Yeah.
Thank you for your email, Ross. You can email from the website, although the show's about to end, but you can still get in contact with us on the website, or sending one directly to studio@radiopod.co.uk. And a couple of text messages as well. If you want to send a text message, you just send the letters LJNEH to 60777. Obviously put your message after those letters. If you miss what I said with those letters, then it's all on the website anyway, if you do want to text at any point. Anyway, moving on. I've got one here, no name on it. It says, I loved online dating. I just treated it as a bit of fun. My friend described it to me as boyfriend shopping. That's an interesting way of calling it, I suppose, which I thought was brilliant. My first date wasn't great. The guy turned up wearing odd shoes. Turns out he had a bit of a foot obsession, which was weird.
Oh, my goodness.
I think this is from a female. I'm thinking it must be. Yeah, it must be. I asked him why he was wearing odd shoes, and he's just said, oh, I like to do that sometimes, and smiled strangely at me.
Oh, how quirky.
Psycho. My second date was great, though. Met my current partner almost 3 years later, and we're still together and love him to pieces. My advice to anyone thinking of doing online dating is just do it. It's actually quite fun.
Yeah,
brilliant,
absolutely.
positive story. And then the very final one we've come in. Again, it's anonymous. I don't know if it's from a male or female, but I'll read it anyway. We'll try and work it out. It says, I met my wife, in brackets, civil partner, online. But before that, I dated online for about a year. I met many random people who I would never have bumped into otherwise. You see, you can make friends, can't you?
Absolutely.
So, yeah. The text continues. It's a long text. People are sending text messages, a lot of sore thumbs.
That's great.
Yeah. The most memorable date, for the wrong reasons, was when I went to meet a girl for coffee one afternoon. She looked nothing like her profile picture. That's what the previous person says, yeah. Or was it Ross? And I wasn't attracted to her. I'm not very good at saying no. And so the coffee turned into dinner, which turned into her coming back to my house. She didn't leave until midnight. This text continues, I spent the whole time trying to dodge her advances and try to distract her by making her watch Flashdance. Oh, dear. When she finally when she did finally go to leave, she asked me for a kiss at the door on her way out, and again, I couldn't say no.
Oh, some people just can't get the hint, though.
No, she then nervously tripped over on the way to her car. Awkward! Needless to say, we didn't meet up again. Thank God I met Mrs. Right, because dating isn't easy.
No. Wow, that's very good news.
Awesome. Thanks for the text and the emails.
Yeah, so once again, thank you so much for listening. We hope what you've heard tonight will help you get on in the world of online dating, whatever you want out of it.
Single and unsure where to start with online dating has been brought to you by Radiopod. Presented by Jen Nicholson, produced by Jen Nicholson and Rob Smith, with special guests Gary Gunn from socialattraction.co.uk, Saskia Nelson from SaturdayNightsAllRight.com, and Nikki Smith, who used to run a singles events company. This show was sponsored by equaldating.co.uk. All content is copyright Radiopod.
Thank you for listening to another Radiopod special sponsored by equaldating.co.uk. Today's show will be available to download very soon. Log on to radiopod.co.uk to listen again and find out which shows are coming up. Radiopod. Get into it.